Welcome to Sunshine Podcast. We have guest speaker, Christine Johnson, signing on the go, your guide to mobile notary convenience. Well, welcome to the show, Christine.
Hi, thanks, Angela. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll get started on some of the burning questions that people have regarding a mobile notary. How about we just start off with getting to know you a little bit more and how you got into mobile notary and how does that involve like the senior world? Like, how did you get into it?
Well, before actually I became a notary, I was in the healthcare profession for about 18 plus years. So I was a certified medical assistant. I have worked with in a different specialty in the healthcare facilities or clinics. When COVID happened, so a lot of us made some changes in our, personal lives and our careers. And I was one of those. So during the middle of COVID, at that time, my husband's schedule also was changing. So we had to come up with a what works for our family. I have two kids. So, without having to put them into daycare. So we had to think, how can I stay home? Right. So, how can I be a stay home mom and also be out there and help provide financially and not to kind of lose my sense of purpose? So, that's when one day actually we were looking for a notary and a
Okay.
notary came in to the house, and imagine this is during COVID. So we were like, well, wait a minute. So when the notary comes into the house, we did a little signing in the garage with our mask on and
Right.
everything. So I kind of picked her brain and asked her because I was intrigued, right? It's just like, wait. So I asked her questions. She's super nice lady. She said she was retired. She only picks up signings or notary work here and there. So when she was telling me this, a lot of things was like, I'm thinking in my head, it's like, wait a minute, the main thing that caught my attention was that flexibility of the schedule, right? So, and I'm like, you know what? Thinking in my head, it's like, maybe that would work. So when she laughed, my husband and I looked at each other like as if like, wait a minute, something click. So we're like, okay, so maybe this is something that I should look into. So I did look into it, research about notary public work and see what I needed to do and, how flexible is it really? Does it fit our schedule? So I figured, you know what? Why not? I could do this. So now, almost 4 years later, I'm still doing it and I love it. I enjoy it. I think part of it is because it's as a medical assistant, right, in healthcare, it's a public service, which is I enjoy very much. So once becoming a notary, that's also is a public service, but in a different way. In the healthcare, you care for people that are sick. So with a notary work, it's similar, but some of them are sick. So that's why I thought of like, why not specialize into something I already know?
Exactly.
Care for provide services in a way in a healthcare settings. So most of my notary work is actually in healthcare settings, rehab centers, hospitals. And I feel like I fit better into that setting is because I have that prior experience.
That's
So,
awesome.
but anyways, that's how I
Yeah.
became a notary public.
Yeah, there you go. Honestly, that it all makes sense. You got really curious and actually you started your own business. So talk a little bit more about how your business got formed. I know that it was supposed to be like a side hustle to begin with, but now it's boomed and it's 4 years later now and it's grown. You're all around the area now. What is the name of your business? How do people contact you? And then we'll go into further into discussion on the type of things that services that you do.
Yes. So the name of my business is South Sound Mobile Notary. I can be contacted from via email, text message, Facebook, social media. Google me, Google South Sound Mobile Notary. I'm there. So, and then I service the Pierce County, Thurston, and Lower South King County. If you really need or a client really need me further than my county's service, let me know and maybe we can work something out.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So let's move on to what kind of documents requires a notary public to be notarized?
Oh,
Like,
yes, yes. So, I mean, there's so many of them, but I will kind of talk about the most common documents that is needing notarization, or sometimes people will just ask for it to be notarized. So, let's say one, like we can start with estate planning documents that will include the last will and testaments, or people call them wills. There's the living trust documents. And a lot of them, I do power of attorneys. So now there are different types of power of attorneys that I notarize. There's the individual power of attorney, which is power of attorney for finances, and a power of attorney for healthcare. So, and also real estate documents. I do if a person, a client is selling or purchasing a home. So sometimes those individual are provided with stacks of documents, right? So that could be 100 pages to 200 pages, but not necessarily all those documents that you're being presented with needing notarization. Maybe you'll see 10 to 15 documents that will require notarization. Let's see, there's loan modification, refinance. If you're
okay.
refinancing property or homes, those are requires notarization. Deeds, quick claim deeds, deed of trust. There's divorce documents too. Those are not in the real estate documents, but as a individual divorce documents, those are needs notarization as well. Business contracts, lease agreements. But anyways, those are the most common one that we get asked to notarize. But there's more.
Some people like go to their bank for a notary or they Google like a notary place and a regular notary. Not a lot of people may understand what would be a common reason to utilize a mobile notary and how convenient it makes paperwork to get processed.
Right. Okay. Well, let's see. Let me actually talk about the difference between having a mobile notary and a regular notary. Well, a mobile notary and a regular notary, essentially, they perform the same function, which is to identify the signing party, witness and confirm the competencies, the knowledge, and the willingness of the signer. But they have there are a few key differences, right? So with the regular notary, they typically operate at a set location, like you mentioned, the banks, UPS, most common is the UPS, law offices, and sometimes, actually with those type of settings, the client will need to travel to their location. So with a mobile notary, the mobile travel to the location of the client to perform the notarization. That can either be at their homes, rehab centers, work office, coffee shops, restaurants, nursing homes, and any location really to where, the client feel the most convenient
Okay.
for them. And
Okay.
then as far as, let's talk about flexibility and the convenience between the two. With a regular notary, let's use, for example, bank notary. A client may require to schedule an appointment on the days that their notary is only available.
Mm,
And then availability may be limited due to their business hours. So you're 8 to 5, right? Which may not always convenient to some. So, what if you get off work at 7 p.m.? let's say you need a notary, then now you have to, some people may have to take some time off work to be
Mm,
able to go to those places to get their documents notarized.
right.
Right. So with a mobile notary, they can provide more flexibility and the convenience for the clients. For example, like, they work until 7 p.m., right? So the notary can meet up at their home or wherever to get those notarized, and they don't have to take time off. Or people would have difficulty traveling, someone who is wheelchair bound, bed bound, recovering from surgery or hospitalized. You can have the notary come to their locations to provide those services. So it takes that stress off of their shoulder, right? Knowing that there is a service out there that can, just go basically travel to them and provide those services. Let's see what else. Or simply, they have kids, toddlers running around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Families, they don't want to take their kids, to go to UPS to stand in line to get documents notarized. So then, instead, they can have a mobile notary, travel to their home and, get those documents notarized. So it's just that stress, right? That
Right. It makes it really convenient and peace of mind that no matter like what time it can fit into the customer schedule. And when they need a document signed, some things need to be signed right away, or they
right.
didn't know that it needed to be notarized. And it's helpful to know that you could just go to them.
Right, exactly, exactly. And then oftentimes, actually, mobile notaries are available on the weekends. So again, this is the when people have to take time off, right? So some people doesn't have enough vacations or they don't have the time to, be able to take vacations or sick time. So they work 8 to 5 job Monday through Friday. So mobile notaries, some of them are available on the weekend, 7 days a week to provide services that to accommodate those people that is, on a working schedule.
All right. So I want to think from a point of view of someone that has paperwork now and they're presented with all of this documents and they need it to be notarized and they hear this podcast and they're like, okay, I can just call, Christine. And what does that look like? What do they need to be prepared for? Like, what documents do they need to prove that it's them? And just a little bit more of like preparation. Like, when should they know when to contact you for, and what should they have?
Right. So when somebody, let's say somebody has a document that is needing notarized, so the first thing they're gonna think is like, oh, well, I need to call somebody that is a notary. So usually, what the notary would ask first is, what type of documents is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, usually, what they're looking for is the title of document, right? So let's say it's a power of attorney for finances, let's say. So then the next question will be, who is the signer? Half of the time, the people that are calling are a family members, friends, especially if, the signer is a senior, let's say. So then you got the notary will need to ask and be prepared to answer it. Who is the signing part? It could be your grandparents or so. And are they able to sign those documents? Are they physically able to sign the documents? And do they have a valid photo ID?
Okay.
So those are usually, the questions that is asked is the type of documents, do they have a valid ID, and who is the signing party? And also, is that person that's signing, do they have knowledge? Are they competent enough? Are they, their mental capacity, are they there to understand what they are signing?
Okay.
And also the location. Where is it going to be? Is it in a medical settings? Those are really important to know, is because that'll make the determination of, as far as the scheduling part of it, and also to make sure the signing is as efficient as and as organized as possible.
Okay, good, good, good. So I want to talk about a little bit like scenarios because you're a notary, I'm in in-home care. So let's just in our scenario of like in-home care, clients now get to a point where now they need like a POA, like you said, someone to manage their finances or their medical decisions. They get paperwork from their lawyer. But obviously, in-home care clients, they don't really travel outside, not all the
Right.
time. They could travel to you, but it would make it more convenient if you could, meet with the family and get things notarized so they can get paperwork all set to go. Is that kind of a scenario like would be like really convenient to families to know that they could reach out to you, that you could have an appointment like with the daughter or with the son? And making sure that all the paperwork is in order. Because I know that you have a lot of resource attorneys and people that you would, refer out to. So if they weren't even fully prepared, they're like, I need a POA document. And like at that point, you would guide them to what they would need to do before you. Right?
Yes, definitely. So, yes, sometimes actually I get asked if I can provide those documents, which is I cannot. So
Right.
I get literally asked, hey, I need a power of attorney for my mom. So the first thing I ask, do you already have the documents, right? Because sometimes they don't, because sometimes they don't know. They just need
Okay.
guidance and they just need help.
Okay.
And with the resources that I have, I'm able to guide them, right? So, they say, I don't have the documents yet. Where can I go get them? So, and then I'll just direct them what they'll need. And for the meantime, I have all these other information as a notary that I will need from them. Once they acquire that document, then now what? So I think the initial conversation, that's the opportunity for me to tell them. I know it's a lot, is to tell the client, after you acquire that documents, then that's where the notarization comes in.
Mm.
What will I need as a notary for me to execute that documents properly, in more like in an efficient manner, right? So, yeah, but anyways, did I
Awesome.
answer your question?
Yes, you did. So, for those listening, I know that people do a lot of research on their own, and some honestly just trust, individuals that know and then trust. How about what are some guidelines into finding a reputable mobile notary? Because you are top tier and you give great service and hospitality and you are in the healthcare sector. How do they know the difference between your excellent service and someone that is a mobile notary, and are they really official? Like how would someone know?
Right. So, like you said, do their own research before, right? And, call around.
Right, yeah, and so when they do, like, search, what stands out from an actual legitimate like, for, like, in-home care, we are licensed with Department of Health, like, we have to be legitimate, and we can be found. We have to prove that we're actually a legitimate company because these are sensitive information like divorce papers and power of attorney or the deed to my house or something, really serious. These are sensitive information and they don't want to just have someone come to their house or to a place. How do they know the difference between like a legit notary And is there somewhere like a directory or something to look for? Do notaries have like their own, I don't know, like valid number or something that you can prove? I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, Department of Licensing, to where professionals, you can just type in. So let's say you Google search my business, South Sound Mobile Notary, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to use her, right? So before you even call that person or that company, go to Department of Licensing,
Okay.
type in their business name and the locations, and then it'll just show up whether they are active license, and then if whether they have a disciplinary action, it tells you.
Okay.
So once you determine that's like, okay, this person, their license is active, they're legit. So the next step is look at the reviews, look at their, their ratings, look at their, when you read the reviews, I know this because when I'm looking for services, let's say a plumber, right, I always have to look at the ratings and the reviews.
Right.
It's because it just show, by reading those content, it gives you an idea how this person is or how this company work. So look at their reviews and look at the photos or things like that, whether they have, a profile photo, because those are big to me. If I'm going to have somebody come into my house, do the sensitive documents, I want to know who's coming, right?
Right.
So, I mean, those are, for me, those are really important to me is, they're coming to my house or they're coming to meet my family, whether that could be my mom because she's the person that's signing it. I want to make sure, I have that good interaction, whether that's just initially on the phone. And, I think that's when you talk to somebody on the phone, you have that feeling whether, you create that bond,
Okay.
right? So just
Mhm.
that feeling, what is that feeling good about it, that it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna hire this person because this person is sounds really nice and sincere and seems like she knows what she's talking about or know what she's talking about.
Absolutely. And I know there's a few last questions that I think our audience will like to know. We don't have to go in complete detail into it, but just a little bit more of like, how does it work to hire a mobile notary? Is that through the companies that they are getting these documents from? Is this like out of pocket? Is insurance pay for these things? What should a potential customer like listening to this expect to know how to pay for these services?
Yes. So when you hire a notary, it's really important to know everything ahead of time. No
Mhm.
surprises. So, especially when it comes to fees and rates. So, every notary charges differently, and they have category of how much they charge for each, let's say, different types of documents.
Mhm.
So, real estate documents, so it varies. So there is no set price on how much a notary. With a mobile notary, there's travel fees and service fees that you have to be accounted for. So each document charges, actually some notaries, they charges for depending on, what type of documents it is, how many people are signing the documents, where is it, and what type of setting is it.
That makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's whether it could be at a hospital settings or a rehab center, even jail. So, I mean, those are actually, they have to, those things that has to be accounted for as far as, with the fees associated with it.
And that could
And you,
just be easily as just a phone call with you, like to get a quote, like, hey, I have these documents, like
mhm.
what are the service fees for this? Because every document is different and it's very convenient to have your services. So I don't see why not people would, utilize it.
So the notary should be able to tell you with all the information that I gathered, this is the total cost of my services. And, just ask how they want, to be, what type of form of payment do they accept. So those are
Okay.
really important too, because not everybody accepts cards. So those are the things that you might want to ask your notary. What type of payment can you accept?
All right. And then as far as like meeting places, I know we kind of talked about in the home and, meeting at different places. To kind of end the discussion of the convenience of everything, um, if the client was uncomfortable, like, okay, I don't want someone in my house, it's so messy. Are you able to find like a different place to meet? Is that something common, or what's most common? Do you typically go to their home or meet them somewhere else? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, it depends really. I mostly meet them at their home. Like I said, most of my clients are have mobility issues. So, and like I said, it's in the healthcare settings. So usually I meet them at their house because that's where they feel more comfortable. And plus, privacy thing too. So if you meet up at a public or, a client goes to UPS, it's not as far as private, it's non-existent really, right? Because you have other
Okay.
people in the background listening. So a lot of people are, would better to just meet at their home. I mean, I have signed documents at a parking lot, right? So, I mean, it's just depending on maybe the client is already on the road and UPS was closed. So they're like, okay, can you meet me at Costco parking lot because I'm nearby? And we're like, oh, okay, I'll be there in like an hour, right?
Nice.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it's just depending on, the client's comfort level. So, I mean, yeah, I have signed documents pretty much anywhere. Well, anyways, okay, actually, I have signed. It was during COVID. It was my first year. It was during COVID. We had to sign a real estate documents, and real estate documents, there's stacks of paper.
A
I
lot.
I have a small table, a portable table that I keep in my car, so just in case. So I had to meet a client, and it was snowing. It was dark. It was snowing too. So we had to sign on their driveway. While it's snowing, there was lack of lighting, and we're thinking about a stack of paper. So here I
Mhm.
am walking with, with a portable table because we're talking about conveniency, right? You want
Mhm.
everything to be there. So I got my table and then I got my lights and an umbrella so the paperwork doesn't get wet. So I think that's the most challenging situation I would say I've ever been into because the weather and it was COVID too. We have to keep that distance. We had a mask outside. So I mean, I would never forget that actually, is because I think that was the most memorable signing. Plus, I was fairly new too. So that was the most memorable one I have ever done.
That's actually very exciting, including when you're signing for a new house. I bet there was a time crunch and time to get this paperwork, to get the clothes, and you were able to meet them right in the driveway in the snow. It didn't really matter, and they still were able to process and get their house. So
Right, I know, right? So I mean, we just had to make it work. It may take a little longer, but it was done. We got it done. Everybody, client was happy, the lender was happy. So I mean, everything worked out. Let's say your family member had a stroke. Let's say mom, let's
mhm.
say she's at the rehab center. So you might want to ask the notary whether they are familiar with handling and communicating with a patient that is recovering from stroke because sometimes signing the documents can be difficult for them, even
Mm.
communicating, right? So I think those are really important to ask the notary. Some notaries might not feel comfortable doing that. So I just simply asking them, I have my mom is at a rehab center, just suffered a stroke. She has, she can't use her dominant hand. So how do she can still sign, however, it just takes a little time.
Okay.
So. So, and then you just want to make sure, ask them. And one another thing that is common is a patient or client that has tremors
Mm,
or Parkinson's disease, let's say. So their, penmanships is not as great as it was, I don't know, when they were in their 20s. So, but anyways, that's I wanted to talk about.
right. And so what gives you the edge of having healthcare as your background? Not only will you be able to assess even in the phone call if you are able to do the notary, a lot of places may not even ask those questions. They don't even think about that. They get there and they're like, sorry, we can't do that because they're just weren't well versed in, oh wow, this person has tremors, like wow, I'm not really like not quite sure about this. Not saying that a notary would do that. They would still have to be professional, but because you already have that healthcare experience in the back of your mind, like can they write their name, like can they do this? And if they're calling from a hospital or these places, you're already asking the questions, like, are they okay to sign? You're thinking far more like in a healthcare mind, also as a notary mind, and you get to put
Yeah.
that together. So there's peace of mind knowing that if they call you and you say yes, there's a high chance that these documents will be processed because you've already asked the questions and there's no surprises when you show up.
Right,
Right, and you
right.
have all the training, so you understand the forms of dementia or things like that. And it's also like a really hard time because someone may already be in an assisted living, they have to sign off their house, and it's just a really hard time. So you just have that touch and you just understand the situation. Like, don't worry, we'll just take our time. It's okay. If you have to like take a deep breather and the family needs to talk it out, I'll be right here when you need me.
That's why, I love the healthcare settings of it. And I think part of it because I have that experience,
Mhm.
right, of be able to help and handle that type of situations.
That's awesome. All right, so, as we close, we already know how to get a hold of you because you are the notary expert, and, there will be, social media links in your website and how to get a hold of you in the descriptions below and all around the place. Well, thank you, Christine, for coming on to Sunshine's podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been fun. And like I said, thank you for having me. And this is a great experience.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you.